Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it.
US President Donald Trump has denied knowing a first-hand account by The Atlantic magazine that described top administration officials, including US Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, mistakenly including a journalist in a messaging group discussing strikes against Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage.
I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what?
The top secret US military chat allegedly was held on the commercially available messaging app Signal, rather than through secure US government systems. A long-standing military journalist and the current editor-in-chief of magazine The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, reported that he had been added to a group chat called Houthi PC Small Group on March 13, 2025 via Signal.
I get a message request to connect with Mike Waltz, who's the National Security Advisor, or someone who's purporting to be Mike Waltz. Not an unusual thing in Washington. I'm a journalist. I've met him in the past. So I accept it. Nothing happens. I sort of forget about it. And then a couple of days later, I'm added to a group of seemingly very, very high national security officials of the United States.
Mr. Goldberg said he was initially skeptical that the chat group was legitimate and thought it might have been a prank or even a way to embarrass journalists.
The main reason I thought that actually was that it seemed completely absurd to me that the national security leadership of the United States would be meeting on a messaging app to discuss forthcoming military action, and that they would also sort of invite the editor of The Atlantic magazine to that conversation. So I tracked this for a while, obviously, to see what was going on and see who was trying to entrap me or trick me.
Various messages then appeared in the group that seemed to be from Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Discussions took place about an airstrike against the Houthis, a group in Yemen funded by Iran that has been launching missiles at Israel and merchant vessels in the Red Sea. Mr. Goldberg said a Signal account labelled J.D. Vance pushed back on a missile strike. It suggested more messaging was needed to firm up why the US was taking such an action, particularly for US European allies. The journalist said no one seemed to realise he was in the chat group, and he left when he became concerned it was almost certainly real and could be a genuine discussion between White House top brass.
It's a robust conversation. It's actually pretty impressive in some ways. They're going back and forth. A lot of resentment directed at European allies of the United States, which obviously enhanced the credibility of this chain, because everybody in the chain sounded like the people I know who are in this administration. Nevertheless, it wasn't until Saturday that I was reasonably certain that this wasn't a hoax, that I had actually mistakenly been included in a conversation of the Principals Committee, essentially the leaders of the national security community, including the head of the CIA. I removed myself from the chat, actually. I am no longer privy to what, if anything, is going on in the chat. I watched this Yemen operation go from beginning to apparent end, and that was enough for me to learn that there's something wrong in the system here that would allow this information to come so dangerously close to the open, to the wild.
The White House has said it was reviewing how a journalist was added to the airstrikes chat. At this time, the message thread that was reported appears to be authentic, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain.
What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective, I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time. Anybody else?